The Haggadah takes us on a journey from slavery to freedom, and as such, it starts with the paragraph Avadim hayinu Paro b'Mitzrayim, that we were slaves to Paro in Egypt. Interestingly enough, the Haggadah then seems to take a digression and tells us a story about rabbis at their Seder table in Bnei Brak. We can ask the question, why does the Haggadah take this digression? Just continue telling us the story of Avadim hayinu, and if they want to tell us a story about 5 rabbis who sat around the Seder table, we can do it later on. Why the digression? The obvious answer is because the paragraph of Avadim Hayinu ends with the famous phrase, V'chol hamalbeh l'saper b'yitziat Mitzrayim harei ze mishubach. Anyone that tells over the story of Yitziat Mitzrayim in profuse fashion is praiseworthy. And here's an example of rabbis who stayed up all night telling over the story. However, I think there's another way to look at it that adds a tremendous dimension to the Haggadah. And that is that the most important person, so to speak, at that Seder table is Rabbi Akiva, who lived in Bnei Brak, and apparently they were sitting around his table. And Rabbi Akiva, throughout history, is a man who is iconic of hope. The Gemara in Masechet Makot, in the very last daf, tells the story of Rabbi Akiva and these very same rabbis as they walk through Yerushalayim, and they happen upon Har HaBayit, and it's destroyed. And they see a fox crawl out of the place where the Kodesh HaKodashim once was, and the rest of the rabbis cry, and Rabbi Akiva laughs. And Rabbi Akiva turns to them and he says, "Why are you crying?" And they say, "What do you mean, why are you crying? Why are you laughing?" And he says, "I'm laughing because I see the Bet HaMikdash and its destruction, so I know that the Nevuah about its destruction came true, and now I'm confident that the Nevuah about its rebuilding will also come true." Rabbi Akiva is a symbol of hope. He's the man who started learning when he was 40 years old. He could have said, "It's not worth it, it's too late." But he understood there was hope for everybody. This is the man who, after 24,000 of his students were killed, he continued to teach Torah. He could have checked in his books. Why? Why should I do it? Why is it worth it? But he went on to teach Torah and to proliferate Torah and therefore make sure it continued in the Jewish people. Rabbi Akiva is a man of hope. And so as we open the Haggadah, we say, Avadim hayinu Paro b'Mitzrayim, we're telling the story over to our children. We were slaves to Paro in Egypt. And the story that we're about to tell is a very sad story. It's a story of genocide, it's a story of oppression, it's a story of servitude. But the story ends well. And so we interject as we begin the story and remind our children that there's always hope. And the Jewish people have survived on hope. So we're going to tell the story, but know that the story ends on the right note. Because the single most important factor in the survival of the Jewish people is to never give up. That is the story of the Jews. That is our strategy. That is what has kept us alive for thousands of years, despite all of the oppression, all of the servitude, and all of the difficulties that we've had. Wishing you a Chag Kasher v'Sameach, only good things, Tizku l'Shanim Rabot.